Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nitzan Steinberg, Grandmaster, and I am here with you to see the recap of round 5 of the FIDE Candidates 2024. So ladies and gentlemen, I really welcome you to subscribe my channel, like the videos, and comment, share to your friends and family, and feel free to tell me whatever you want and your thoughts and ideas to improve. So thank you very much for watching. Let's see the first round, the first game, of course, in round 5. Praggnanandhaa against Nepomniachtchi. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. Jan is playing the Petrov defense, the Russian defense, as it also called. Knight takes e5, d6, knight f3. This all very known here. There is possibility also to play knight c3 here. Knight takes, d takes, bishop e7, bishop e3. Castle, queen d2, knight d7, I think, knight e5, knight f6, bishop e6, c5, queen a5, but white also playing castle, king b1, bishop d3, h4, h5. So yeah, like it's interesting position in Petrov. In this position also there is possibility to play queen e2, queen e7, d3, knight f6 and knight c3. If I remember correct, there was a game between Magnus Carlsen, the legend, against Fabiano Caruana in this position. If I'm not wrong, and Magnus won the game. And in this position also one point is to play d3, knight f6 and d4. And after black is playing d5, bishop d3, bishop d6, castle, castle, h3, h6, rook e1, rook e8, knight c3. There is a beautiful, like tactic in this position. After c6, knight e5, knight bd7, for example, bishop f4, queen c7, queen f3. And now knight takes e5 is a blunder because d takes e5. And now the only move for black not to lose is to take it with the rook on e5, bishop takes, and after rook e2 is, like exchange up for white and a big advantage. But if he's taking with the bishop, white is winning absolutely. After rook takes e5, rook takes e5, and just queen g3. Knight e7, of course, to protect the rook on e5, and bishop takes h6, wants to give a checkmate. After g6, of course, bishop g6, and the game is over. And after bishop h6, there is possibility for black to play rook e1, rook takes e1, queen g3, rook e8, check, intermediate check, knight f8, and now you're taking the queen, g takes h6, and bishop f5. And the game is over after bishop takes f5, rook a8, and white is winning. So all of this, like some variations in the Petrov line, but Pragg is playing the most common move here, d4, d5, bishop d3, bishop d6, castle, castle, c4, c6, knight c3, take, d takes c4, bishop takes, and bishop f5. White wants to play rook b1 and bishop f5 prevent it. So bishop g5 was played very fast by Pragg, queen a5, knight h4, bishop e6, and now Pragg is playing bishop takes c6, queen g5, knight f3, and queen a5. And like both of the players are playing, from the book, from their preparation. And bishop h3 was played by Pragg. Queen takes c3. Jan is playing fast, as we already know him. Rook b1, and now b6 was played. Rook b3, queen a5, and d5. So all of these, like until move 19, both of the players are very familiar with this position. C takes d5. After 40 minutes, Jan Nepomniachtchi is thinking and playing the move C takes d5. Of course, queen d5 is losing absolutely immediately after rook d3 and double attack also of the rook, the queen, and also of course the bishop on d6. So in d5, after d5, for example, c5, just black is playing without the queen. I assume something like knight h4, knight f5, queen h5, knight, rook f3 is coming. All the pieces are coming, and black is just cannot develop his pieces, right? Knight a6, something like this, but okay, it really seems bad. So c5 not make sense. C takes d5, and knight g5 was played by Prague, also very fast. Like in the preparation, maybe Peter Sviller helped him in this prep. So h6 was played by Jan. Also 9 minutes took him, and now, oh no, this is not what happened, of course. But in this position was played knight takes f7. Brilliant move by Prague. King takes f7. Of course, after rook f7, bishop e6 is the move. And now, like it's very complicated. Bishop d5 is a threat, rook f3 is a threat. And it seems that after knight c6, for example, bishop d5, queen c5, I just can take the queen, the rook, of course, king takes, and something like queen f3. And, like it's problematic for him, right? Because what can you do? For example, king g8, rook c3, and I take the knight, right? Because knight e5 is not working because of queen takes a8. So in this position, king f7 is the best. Rook d3 was played by Prague, like 1 hour and 51 minutes. You see how much professional Prague is, just unbelievable. Know the prep, remember everything, until the move 22 is on his prep. Unbelievable. So 97 was played by Nepo. Rook takes d5, knight c5, rook d6, and in this position Prague didn't remember his lines here, but of course white is better. King g8, queen d5 check, king h8, and now I think this is the main point that Prague missed here, the opportunity to get some very good advantage in this position. So maybe you can stop the video for 1-2 minutes and try to solve the puzzle. And let me tell you, so the move is queen e5. Queen e5 is the best move in the position, and the point is that rook h6 is a threat, is a really big threat. For example, king h7 is not working because bishop f5, king g8, and just rook g6. Oh, sorry, rook g6, of course, and rook f7, and now maybe, I don't know, maybe rook g7, queen d5, and taking this rook. And like this king is just unbelievable, not safe here, right? So yeah, I think this must be the move. Yeah, queen e5 was very strong move. I think after king g8, the problem here is to play, yeah, like rook g8 and rook f7 and what we saw, but without the bishop on f5, of course. So queen e5, I think this is the miss from Prague in this game. He played the move bishop f5, also very, very understandable. I think very logical to play such move. I want to bring the bishop in this diagonal, b1, h7, maybe to play something like bishop b1, and somehow to bring the queen also in this diagonal. Something like queen, like queen h5, queen g6, or maybe queen c4, queen c2. And it's very, very tempting here on h7. So knight b7 was played, brilliant move, I think, by Nepo. Queen takes b7, of course, will meet by queen takes f5, and black is totally fine here. So Prague played the move queen takes a5, knight a5, and now g4. So of course the bishop is much stronger than this knight, but like Nepo is very strong to achieve a draw here. Let's see how it happened. So knight c4, bringing the knight into the center, rook d5, rook a8, h3, knight d5, king g2, g6, bishop c2, g5. Wants to take these and these squares for black, something like maybe knight f3, knight h4. So bishop f5 was played by Prague, rook e7, rook d6, king g7, rook e1, rook f6, and it seems like the draw is coming. Yeah, and they played some moves, and of course this position is a totally draw. Like you can just simplify the position, take the a4 pawn, he will take the a2 pawn, something like this, or maybe the b6 pawn for the a2 pawn, and it's a draw. And Nepomniachtchi played the move a4, and offer a draw. Of course, Prague took the draw and they come back home a little bit sleep because it's so much tense in this tournament. So let's see the second game of this round number 5, between Firouza, Alireza Firouza against Hikaru Nakamura. So e4, e5, knight e3, knight c6, bishop c4. You know, in this tournament, it really surprised me to see so much e4 first move. It's just brilliant to see it. Knight f6, d3, this is the Italian game, of course. Bishop c5, c3, h6, b4 was played by Firouza, and queen b3. The point after b4, that after bishop bc, for example, a4, a6, and you know, like white took some space here, maybe something like castle, you know, like rook a2. There is possibility to play rook e2 will be next. So yeah, it's really common in Italian game to play b4 a4, but Hikaru took his bishop to e7. Very surprising. Queen b3 was played, of course, attacking this pawn on f7. Castle a4. It seems like both of the players are familiar with this position. d6 was played, knight bd2, and knight b8. Very interesting move by Hikaru. I'm not sure what was his idea, but I assume to play c6 and d5. Maybe we will see it in the next moves. But d4 was played. I think like after castle c6 is very strong move, and d5 will come fast. But d4 was played by Firouza. You see that he has a lot of pawns here in the 4 row. So e takes d4 of course, c takes d4, and a5 was played. Hikaru wants to just, you know, like maybe to have this square for the knight. For example, b5, I think will bring the d5 move, e takes d5 and knight bd7 and knight b6, and this square for knight will be very good, of course. So a5 was also to attack the b4 pawn, and also to prevent a5 by white in the next moves. So Firouza, you know, like you know him. He's playing very fast and very strong, and in very confidence. So he played the move e5 after 27 minutes. I'm not sure if he's the most fast player in this tournament. I think no, but you know, like in bullet, he's just crazy. He's playing unbelievable performance in bullet and in blitz, so he can do it. So he managed to think like a lot of time here on e5. Knight h5 was played. You see, all the pieces, all the black pieces are not so good, right? The rook on a8, knight b8, bishop c8, bishop e7, and knight on h5. What Hikaru is doing here? b5 was played, knight f4, threatening the pawn on g2, g3, and d5. Bishop f1 and knight e6. So the knight done a lot of moves here from f6, h5, f4, e6, and now maybe the next moves will be c6, knight e7, oh sorry, knight e7, knight b6, and somehow to develop the pieces. So bishop g2 was played by white, c6, castle, and knight e7. c6 was to defend the pawn, of course, on d5, and knight d7 to develop the knight, maybe to b6, and let's see what happened. So bishop b2, knight b6, takes, and bishop c3. I must say that I'm not sure about this plan to play bishop b2, bishop c3. I'm not sure what this bishop is doing here, but let's see. c5, rook fb1, rook a6, just defend the knight on b6, d takes c5, bishop c5, queen b5, queen c7, makes sense. And now after bishop a5, of course, it's not working because of queen a7, just a brilliant move. Also, like attacking this bishop on a5, but also after bishop c3, knight a4 will come also to open this bishop and the queen, of course, to attack on f2, and also to attack this bishop on c3. So rook c1 was played, not bishop a5, of course. Rook c1, queen a7, queen e2, to defend this pawn on f2, the really weak pawn. Bishop d7, another piece come to the attack, wants to take the pawn on a4, bishop f1. What about the rook, man? Knight c4, knight b3. For example, knight takes e4 is not so good because d takes e4, bishop g2, for example, and rook c8. And now black is totally fine, I think. Maybe bishop b4 the next move, rook b8, and black is doing great. So knight b3 was played, bishop b6, rook d1, attacking the pawn on d5, queen a8, bishop g2, makes sense. Knight c5 was played. And now it seems that black is a little bit slow. I think that rook c8 maybe was the key move in this position, because now maybe knight e3 is already a threat, right? The bishop on c3 is weak, and knight e3 is very interesting move. For example, h4 is not good because knight e3. You see, knight e3, this one, and this one. Wow, this rook c8 was very strong move, I think. Let's see what happens. So knight c5, and now take, and now he played the move knight h4. I'm not sure why he didn't play the move knight d4, for example, because knight d4, you're coming in with the knight into the center. Maybe knight b5 will be the next move, maybe like something like queen h5, knight f5, and maybe e6, you know, in some variations. So it's really important to understand. Also, knight d4 is threatening knight b3 here with double attack on c5 and also on d5. So it's really strange to see Firouza is playing knight d4, but I assume that he has 40 minutes on the clock, and the time, you know, like for 10 moves, it's not so many minutes to play. So knight h4 was played, knight b6, bishop d4, and also in this position, it seems like white is better. The rook is not doing great, knight is not doing great, the bishop is fine, but you know, like this diagonal is strong, the rook will come here or here, and f4, f5 is coming, so it's not so easy to play. Rook a7, strong move by Hikaru, wants to bring the rook into the game. h3, I think this may be a little bit slow. Maybe something like rook b1, I thought. Like knight a4, and now maybe to play e6, because bishop d5 is not good because knight e3. But e6 is interesting. F takes e6, rook a4, bishop e4, a4, sorry, and queen a6. And now the next move will be bishop d5 with knight g6. Really interesting position to play, right? So maybe this one was a little bit faster than h3. You know, h3, and what will be the next move? Maybe g4, knight f5. What? I'm not sure. Let's see. So rook c7 is developing, you know, like improving the rook from a7, from a6 to a7 to c7. So the rook is coming into the game. g4 was played by white. Queen c8, queen d2, rook c5, queen f4. It seems like Firouza is playing very slow. Rook e8, but 2 minutes on the clock for 4 minutes for 4 moves. It's really you know, like tough situation. So knight f5 very fast, take, queen c7, rook e1, and knight d7, and there is a problematic with this pawn on e5. So e6, queen takes f4, and Hikaru is briefly safely, and he says, okay, Firouza will not give a checkmate here, and I'm fine, man. I'm totally fine with the knight against the bishop. Rook takes f4, knight f6, rook d4, king f8, and of course in this position only black is playing for a win. And let's see how it happens. So knight e4, bishop d3, knight c3, f4, d4, rook g2, g5, f5. So intense position, you know, like it's not easy to understand. f6, rook f2, rook f7, so much troubles. But knight e5 is not giving the opportunity to play f6, rook e4, knight b4. What about f6 now? Take, rook f2, rook f5, take, rook a7, wants to promote the queen, knight takes d3, queen, take, knight f4, wow, really interesting position. King f1 was played, d3, king f2, knight takes h3, king e3, g4, and in this position, Alireza has 1 minute and a half seconds on the clock, you know, like, and it's not so easy to understand how to drawish this position, but I think rook a8 was the best. Okay, you just want to take the pawn, come back, come here and like something here, and the pawn is running. And it's not so easy to defend it. So g3 was the move. King f3, I think the only move to play in this position. d2, rook d8, knight g5, king g3, and h5, and knight e4, and I assume it will be a draw because these two pawns are going fast. King f2, for example, king f4, king e2, knight f3, and of course rook f8, king g4, and cannot take the knight because of the queen, and black is totally winning. So in this position it will be a draw after check, check, and yeah, it will be a draw. But in this position, Firouza did his last mistake in this game. He played the move king takes d3, and the problem is g3 and g2 and queen, because after rook g8, g2, and if you are not taking, I'm promoting a queen, but after rook takes g2, knight f4, and the rook is collapsing and the black is winning. So after king d3, g3, Firouza is doing the resignation, and Hikaru Nakamura is going forward with a win with the black pieces against Alireza Firouza. So let's see the third game of this round. I will take a glass of water because I'm very want to like to breathe. It's good break. Okay, so Gukesh, the only one against Abasov from Azerbaijan. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, d4, another Petrov, knight takes e4, bishop d3, d5, d takes e5. I think knight takes e5 is played a lot of times. Knight e7, castle, for example, knight e5 takes, and like this position was played also, and instead of castle also knight d7 I think was played, bishop takes and knight d2, and like a lot of draws here were made. So d takes e5 by Gukesh wants to play knight c5, bishop e2. Of course we are not giving up this bishop on d3, so bishop e2, bishop e7, castle, and rook e1, c6, knight bd2. They're playing until now very fast. Knight bd7, 10 minutes by Abasov. h3 was played by Gukesh. a5, knight b3, f6, e takes, knight takes, bishop e3, knight c4, knight bd2. It seems that black is totally fine in this position. a4 was played, takes, knight takes, a3, bishop c5. I think this move was not the like the strongest move in this position, because I'm not sure that this bishop on e3 is better than this bishop on e7. For example, bishop f6, c3, I don't know, bishop f5 maybe, queen c7 maybe queen e8 and queen g6, but this bishop is doing great job here. For example, bishop d4 also makes sense, but like I don't know, b5 maybe, and c4, like preventing of c4, bishop b7, c5 will come maybe in the next future. So it seems like black is totally fine in this position, but bishop c5, I'm thinking that is not a good move, because like bishop d3 takes. I wanted to remove this bishop, so Abasov just bring me it. So queen f6 now, c3, bishop f5, queen e2, take, knight, rook e6, of course, queen f7, rook a1. White is totally better here. This monster, two rooks and a queen on e5, just doing a great job. h6, of course, prevent of knight g5, queen c2, queen d7, and c4. White wants to handle this pawn on d5, d4, and c5. And now this pawn is very weak, and we will take him maybe. So queen f7, rook e4, queen d5, rook e5, two times repetition, but rook 1 e4. Gukesh wants to achieve the win with 5 minutes on the clock for 10 moves. Unbelievable choice made by Gukesh. Rook a8, rook f4, d3, queen takes a4. Not afraid from everything. Gukesh wants to be the world champion. Queen a2, king h2, g6, queen b4, queen f7. It's totally winning position, but of course it's not so easy to understand. For example, here g4, d2, knight takes d2, queen c7, knight f3, and like it seems like white is just winning. But rook e1 was played because Gukesh has only 1 minute on the clock. 1 minute for 5 moves. Unbelievable. Without increment. Don't forget, it's without increment. Rook f8, rook fe4, take, rook d5, knight d4, knight d2 was played very fast. I think queen d2 more logical to play, but knight d2 was played. Knight g7, king g1. This was the 40 move with 30 seconds on the clock. Wow, Gukesh is playing it unbelievable. King g1, knight e6, and now it's really not so simple to understand what is going on. Knight c5 is a threat. Rook e3 was played. Knight c5, queen c4, knight e6. Maybe this was one of the mistakes here, because after queen c4, knight e6, just like taking the pawn. I'm not sure why not to play something like like b5, for example. I'm not sure. Queen h4 maybe, h5. It seems like black is fine, but knight e6 is really strange. Rook takes d3. Gukesh is tanking Abasov for this pawn. b5, queen c3, and knight f4. But now just rook e3, not giving this check on e2. Rook g5. Knight e4 was played. What about queen c6? Because after rook takes g2, I just go with the king on f1, and like rook e6, e8, of course, it's a threat. It's a really big threat. There is problematic with the king, right? So in this position, for example, knight g2 also is not working because of check. King h7, knight e4 is coming, threatening this rook on g5, and also knight f6. For example, after this one, king g7 is not good because of queen c3, queen f6, and rook e7, just winning the game. So was played knight e4 by Gukesh. You see 3 minutes on the clock. He's playing the move knight e4. Also a bad mistake here. Rook g2, king h1, and knight e5. Maybe this one Gukesh missed it. So knight f6 was played, takes, knight e5, queen takes c6, knight takes c3, f takes, and in this position, I think that Abasov needs to handle a draw, right? Queen f5, and like this king on g2 is very weak. Maybe there are a lot of checks to play, but let's see how it's gone. So b3, h5, a4, take, queen g5, king f2, queen f5, king g2, some checks, and king e2, g5. Maybe this was an interesting move by black. Wants to push g4, e4 was played, queen takes h3, check, check, check. We are checking all the time. King h8 and a5 was played by white. Gukesh, like so many times in this game, he wants to show Abasov, you are very close to a draw. You are very close to a draw. But no, I'm continuing to play. I want to win. I want to become the challenger of the champion, Dingley Ren. So h4 was played, queen h6, check, and a6 was played, queen h2. The only move to survive, I think, in this position, because otherwise just a7 and some checks with the promoting a queen. So queen h2 is the only check in the position. King e3 check, checking, king d3 check, king c4, queen c8, king d5, queen d8, queen d6, checking, h3, king f5, f7, of course, wants to bring the mate, queen h6 checkmate. Unbelievable, just brilliant. For example, queen h5 is not working because of queen g6, and takes, h2, a7, queen, and the queen with a checkmate. Unbelievable line with this pawn just crossing all the board with queen on a8, queen on h1, and a checkmate for black. Unbelievable. So queen e6, take, h2, a7, queen. They are playing on the seconds with 2 minutes for each one of them. King g5, check, king h6, queen e3, and now the last mistake by Abasov, playing the move king h5. For example, king h7 was handling a draw. Of course, it's not so easy to defend, but I think that it must be a draw. But you know, like it's not so simple to understand because the king is not safe here. Maybe if the king was here on a2 or maybe on b1, maybe there is a chance to draw it. You know, I played in World Championship in St. Petersburg one time against very strong grandmaster from Russia, and he has a pawn on b file, and I achieved a draw after a long run. I think like 150 moves. But in this position, it's not so easy to understand if white will take the win home. So king h5, but this was mistake because of king. No, king f5 was a mistake because here after king f5 there is one move to play queen g2 and there is no checks for the king, and also black wants to put queen g4, queen g6, and you know like the checks is coming. So after king h5 the winning move was queen c5, and for example king h4, queen f2, king for example I don't know, king h5, just queen f5 and queen h7, for example king h6, just king f7, queen g2, and you know like it will be a checks here, and I will take the queen, of course, replace it, and the e4 pawn will be a queen, of course, king g4, for example, queen f5, king g3, and just pushing the pawn, and this king on g3 is blocked. The way is blocked to b1 or a2, so it's a game over. But of course white need to be very concrete and accurate in this in the game. So after king h5, king f5 was a mistake, but queen f5 was played, queen f4, and now this checkmate is threatening. Queen h2 is threatening. Of course, queen takes f4 is losing after king takes, king g6, and the only move to win, king e5 and king d6. Of course, king f7, king d6, king e8, and king e6, or maybe e5, also winning in this position. So yeah, queen f4, queen b5 was played, and queen e5, brilliant move by Gukesh. And now queen d7, jacks check on f6, king h4, queen g5, and after king h3, queen f5, and the game is over. So Gukesh achieved a very important win on Abasov. Gukesh with 3.5 points after on of 5 rounds until now. Brilliant start by Gukesh. You know, like to see such performance from very young and talented Indian player, it's just unbelievable. So let's see the last game for this round. Vidit from India against Fabiano Caruana from US. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rossolimo, knight f6, Fabiano is playing it again. Bishop takes c6, d takes, and d3. Very interesting line by Vidit. I think Firouza, if you remember, played the move knight c3, knight d4, and e5 was played there. And the game continued with knight takes b5, knight takes b5, and knight d5. Yes, d5. I think like c4, knight c7, something like this was in the game. So bishop c6 was played by Vidit, d takes, d3, bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, and bishop f4. I must say that it's an interesting line to analyze with both of them. You know, like both of the colors are fine for this. And c4 was played by Fabiano. He's playing fast with confidence, and you know, like Vidit here with 1 hour and 30 minutes. So yeah, Vidit is out of prep with knight c3, c takes, e6, and now g4. Very strong move. I like this move because this bishop on g6 is doing nothing. It is really big pawn. Queen b3 was played, queen b6, and now bishop e3. Queen c7, castle long, knight d7, and knight h4. It seems that Vidit is playing really good. Wants to put f4, f5. Of course here, sorry not to mention, queen takes b3, a takes b3, and the pawn is weak after something like a6, knight a4, knight b6, maybe something like this. There is so much places and squares for these two knights and the bishop, so it's not so good for black. So queen c7 is logical from Fabiano. Castle long, knight d7, knight h4, bishop d6. Don't want to let f4. King b1 was played, a5, knight g6, h6, and d4. Just crushing the center with d5. Of course, castle is very scary for black after h4, h5, of course. And you know, like white is just attacking with full power. So play the move a4, bring the pawn to get some initiative maybe. Knight a4, b5, knight c5, takes, bishop e7. And now, you know, like white is totally better, of course, one pawn up. The king is not safe on e8, and h4 was played. I think very strong move. Wants just to put h5 on the ball board, and rook a4 was played. Bishop d4. I think maybe this was one accurate move, because bishop d4. I know. What about f3? Just because I won this fight for a rook, but okay, bishop d4 also makes sense. e5, and now queen g3. So strong, so beautiful by Vidit. Queen a7, queen takes e5, rook a2, and now with 16 minutes on the clock, Vidit didn't play the move. Oh, yo, sorry. My mistake. Oh, my mistake. Queen g7 was played, rook f8, and now was played the move queen e5. Very, very bad move by Vidit. I think like every move was winning here. For example, king c2, just run away. Run away, run away, run away from this attack with the rook and the queen. Just bring the king to g2. You can develop this pawn to a queen, promote the queen, and it's just game over, I think. After king c2 or maybe king c1, I don't see something for black. But after queen e5, Fabiano managed to find the only way to win this game, to draw this game, of course. Queen a4 with the checkmate threat, queen b8, bishop d8, and white should have take this draw, of course, because other move just maybe lose the game, right? King c1, for example, check, king d2, take, and just f6. And I will take this bishop from d4, and it just game over. After queen b8, king f7, and the bishop is gone. So Vidit is taking the draw after playing very strong in the opening and achieved a winning position in these 25 moves. Unfortunately for Vidit, but you know, the tournament is far from being over. Vidit can come back. So let's see. The game between them agreed to a draw after 3-time repetition. So ladies and gentlemen, we finished the 5 round of FIDE Candidates 2024. Unbelievable games, you know, like, and Dingley Run maybe is thinking who will be my challenger for the next World Championship match. So thank you very much. I really appreciate if you can comment, like, and of course subscribe my channel. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye bye.